Well, good morning, Northview. How are you guys doing this morning? It is so good to see. It's great to be connecting with everybody who's watching online this morning as well. Guys, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 5 this morning. If you want to turn there, you can. But before we do dive into the next week of our Sermon on the Mount series, I want to give a little construction update, let you guys know about something that's exciting. The short version is things are moving along very, very well, so well that we're going to be able to do our groundbreaking on our expansion 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, on June 28th. You can clap. Yeah, we're excited about it. We will be doing groundbreaking off of the back of the center. We have been informally calling it the gym. It's really not the right word or the right phrase to describe. That's too simple for what this is really going to be. We are going to call this the field house, because it's far more than a gym. It's going to be the home of Northview students, middle school, high school. It's going to have multiple ministry opportunities for all of our ministries to use and to connect to. Its primary driver really was the explosive growth of kids and student ministries. It will, though, also connect with our big picture center vision, where we are offering really a unique opportunity in our community to give a gift so that we could build relationship and connect with them in their faith journey as well. So the next step in this whole thing, 2 weeks from today, 12:30 p.m. So that basically means, guys, that we'll dismiss out of here, third service, and then we'll all head down, pick up kids if you have kids, and then everybody will head outside for that ceremony. It'll be really an exciting moment, historical moment for us. We can't wait to share in it. We've told all the earlier services, come to service, go have brunch, come back, and then we'll all celebrate together. But it's going to be a great day, so mark your calendars, June 28th, 12:30 p.m. The exciting part for me is not only that we're getting started, but is that our construction team is telling us, hey, we're moving a little ahead of schedule. So we had been talking about July for the start date and for the groundbreaking, and now they're like, you need to get in front of that. You need to hurry up because we want to get rolling if the weather's going to let us. And so that was great news to get from them, and we said we can absolutely do that. So June 28th will be that day. Guys, today we're going to continue through Matthew, continue through the Sermon on the Mount. And as we said last week, this is Jesus' most famous sermon. Happened early in his ministry. He had enough popularity that there were large crowds starting to gather around him. And he sat down with a group and shared really the most intentional, explosive, just word for word, straight red letter, just kingdom manifesto that he could possibly say. And we see it in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. He said in a single setting, we've been committed this summer to just kind of walking through it at a little slower pace and allowing ourselves to kind of really grab a hold of it. We looked last week at the opening part, which is called the Beatitudes. It's this series of 8 blessings that Jesus talks about, 8 different categories of people that if you are these people, then in God's eyes, you are among the most blessed people on earth. It's kind of a shocking list. It's a surprising list. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who are persecuted. But in Jesus' kingdom, things get reversed. Things get upside down. And we said last week that effectively the Beatitudes are a series of invitations, not only to this whole sermon, but to his whole life and ministry and his kingdom. It's the invitation to just come to Jesus broken and empty, and you'll be blessed for it. To come to him and trust him deeply with your life, and you'll be blessed with it. To love people like he loves us, and you'll be blessed by it. And to hold on to him even when life gets hard, and you'll be blessed for it. And then he turns in the very, very next words, just as soon as they've probably barely had time to take in what they just heard, then he says these words. He calls the blessed in the Beatitudes, the broken ones, the hungry ones, the meek ones. He looks at them and says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You're the light of the world. A city on a hill can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. In ancient times, salt was one of the most tradable commodities that there were. I mean, it was virtual currency at that time. You go way back and look at Roman history, and you'll see that there were times where Roman soldiers were actually paid in cakes of salt. They would break off certain amounts of a larger cake of salt, and that would be your pay. It was called your Solarum Argentinum. And it's where we get our word salary comes from that breaking off and payment in salt. What's fascinating about it is that if you were not a good soldier, they would say, that soldier is not worth his salt. You've heard that saying and maybe never knew where it came from, and now you do. You're welcome. That part was free. If you weren't worth your salt, your salary was cut and you didn't get it. Salt was a big deal. It wasn't just something to flavor, although it did that. It was really tied to preservation. We're talking no refrigeration, no way to keep things cool. This was how meats were preserved and able to be still safe by the time they got on your table to eat. Salt was also used in Jewish religious ceremonies. There were certain sacrifices and offerings that included putting salt on whatever was being sacrificed. I've always looked at that and thought that was funny to me, kind of interesting to me, thinking, does God want his meat seasoned before you offer it on the altar? Maybe not. Maybe that's not what it was. It was probably more about the symbolism. Salt being something that is so stable that it's a reflection of who God is, so faithful, so almost unbreakable in its chemistry and its nature, that's also who God is and what he is like. So when Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, this is effectively what he's saying. He's saying, like salt changes everything it contacts, so do you. So do you. You, by nature, have been placed in the world to be the preservers, the thing or the ones that in a decaying world are pushing that back or slowing that down because you are like me. You are the preserving force in the world around you. Now, the thing about salt that's fascinating is salt doesn't really have to announce itself. It just kind of quietly makes things better. Like when you taste a great steak that's been seasoned the right way, you don't go, dude, this is good salt. This is some good salt. That salt was happy to take a back seat, but to bring out the flavor in that piece of meat. It doesn't need to announce anything. The thing, though, that it does require is it requires contact. I've got a freezer full of meat at home. And I've got a cupboard full of spices at home. But without intentionality and contact, the interplay between the two never happens. It requires contact. You can't salt from far away. There must be contact. Now, my wife thinks I salt from far away. She looks at the kitchen when I get done seasoning everything, getting ready to go on the grill, and she thinks that I stand back and Kobe this salt, all the way over here, throw it on there. And I got to admit, I don't know how it happens, but it does turn into quite a mess every time. I just go, hey, it's art, man. Let me paint, let me, this is my Bob Ross. This is it. Let me go. But it requires contact. It requires contact. And all that salt that missed what the meat that was going on the grill and landed on the counter or the floor or something else, it was all irrelevant. There was nothing that it did to transform what we were about to have. Salt requires contact. It has to touch what it's trying to preserve. We're called to be that. Jesus says you are that if you are the kind of person who's living that life of the Beatitudes, you are that. You are the salt of the earth. Then he talks about you are the light of the world. Well, when he says you're the light of the world, he means like light changes everything that it falls upon, so do you. Everything that it falls upon, you also change. The thing about light that's fascinating is light does not negotiate with darkness. There is no standoff and, hey, I'll do this, you do that, we'll meet 50-50. Light doesn't negotiate with darkness. It just ends it. It just ends it. Little light, big light, doesn't matter. When light enters darkness, light always ends the level of darkness that was present before it. And we've learned this as little kids. And that's why as little kids, we all wanted night lights in our room. We wanted night lights. I had in my room growing up, I had a night light, and I think it was in part helpful because I had this picture of a clown that was on my wall. And I think I think my parents at some point thought this was like gonna be really cool and kiddish and cute. It was terrifying at night. I mean, the shadows would shine in. I mean, still to this day, like clowns, I could be done with them. I don't need them. But that nightlight kind of helped to illuminate. It showed the room for what it is. It let me see where things were. In a dark room, everything is an obstacle without light. Everything is. And that's why I think it's fascinating. I've learned in time that we all circle back to nightlights. We start life with them. And as we get older, we bring them back into our life. But the room changes. It goes from the bedroom to the bathroom. Because that's what we need is in the middle of the night, when we get older, we need to know, how do I get from my bed to where I need to go to the bathroom? You know, and don't act like you're not doing this. Don't even give me those faces like you weren't up at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. Don't even. I know some of you guys too well. That light illuminates. That's just what it is. By nature, that's what it does. Jesus knows that the world that we live in, because of the brokenness that's come into the world through sin, it's a dark, dark world. And a lot of people are stumbling around through the darkness. We have right now in this moment more access to knowledge and information than any era in history. And you would think that that would make living in today's era better than living in a previous era. And yet, anxiety is soaring. Loneliness is soaring. Disillusionment and confusion is soaring. And Jesus says, my people have an opportunity to do something about that. He's saying wherever my people are present, things ought to look different and be better. It ought to be better and brighter because they're there. Workplaces should be better and brighter. Homes should be better and brighter. Schools should be better and brighter. Communities should be better and brighter. Because the salt and light of my people are there. These two metaphors are very different, salt and light, but what they share in common is when they're absent, you know it. People know it. They can feel it. You ever had like something to eat that was basically flavorless and you're like, man, this needs something. This needs something. Often what we reach for is salt. And we put some salt on it and we go, there, okay, it's better. Or we walk into a room that's completely dark and we go, I can't see a thing. It's totally dark. I can't see anything. And the light then becomes a solution to a problem. People may not be able to say it. They may not be able to identify exactly what it is. But for the world that's outside of life with Jesus, they are navigating through a darkness that without salt and without light makes things far more difficult, far less joyful, meaningful, impactful. And Jesus says, for that very reason, that's why my people have been placed in the world. To act as I've called them to act, to act according to their nature. Part of the metaphor is to help us see salt is just salt. It does what it does. Light is just light. It does what it does. And so, like salt and light do what they do and they go according to your nature, so do you. Or maybe it's meant to have us look inward and say, so do I. So do I. Am I acting and living according to this nature that I've been created to act? I think sometimes we think, as we get inward about this, man, it's hard in this world to know how to live for Christ in a salt and light way, in a way that's not abrasive and not abusive and not overbearing. And I think we know that there's some sort of sensibility that needs to be there. And I'm not saying dismiss that, and context and that kind of thing matters, and be sensitive to who's there and how you're going to do what you're going to do, because it doesn't help anybody if you're just a jerk for Jesus. I'm not saying that at all. But it's apparent from this parable or from this part of the sermon that to Jesus, the greatest risk to his people is not standing out, it's fading out. It's not shining too bright. It's letting your light dim and dim and dim and dim and dim to the point that you're no longer visible. Or he says, if salt loses its saltiness, and you go, well, how does that even happen? I mean, how does salt lose its saltiness? It is so stable. Chemistry says salt is salt. It doesn't change to be salt. It can be diluted or it can be compromised if attached to something else in its nature can be changed. The salt that was used in Jesus' day was not, it had impurities in it. And so as such, some of those impurities that were in contact with the salt, or if the salt got damp, or if there was moisture in some of those impurities, it could cause a change in the compound. And it would often make the salt dilute and seemingly disappear, and it would leave this white substance that resembled salt, but actually was not salt or useful for anything at all. That's what Jesus is talking about when he says it's no longer useful. It no longer does anything. Just throw it out. Walk all over it. It's not doing anything. Or the picture of a light under a bowl. His point is that light is designed to illuminate, and that it's intentional action only that puts a bowl over a light. Like, you don't have to. Light doesn't require effort to shine, but covering it does require effort. Covering it requires you doing something to stop what the light is naturally designed to do. And I know that maybe you've lived, I've lived, maybe you are living in a season where the idea of being more public and out there with your faith in the life that you're living is like, it's hard for you to understand or think or consider. And you're going, man, that feels risky at work. That feels risky in my neighborhood or in my family, in my friends. And it is. And we talked about that last week. Jesus said, blessed are you when you're persecuted, told lies about, mischaracterized because of me. Blessed are you, for great is your reward in heaven. What he's talking about here is that there's a version of faith that hides, that some people have tried to adopt, but that version is working against the very nature of what that faith is. Jesus is gently pointing out that light is not for covering. It's for shining. And he's not saying perform better, shine harder, be more impressive. He's saying let what's there show. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 8 says, you were once darkness, but now you're light in the Lord. So live as children of the light. In fact, he kind of builds on this metaphor of light and says, your light is like a collection of lights, like a city on a hill. And a city on a hill can't be hidden. You can see it for miles around. It's fascinating when you think about how much of our navigation, specifically in the dark at night, is connected to lights. And without any kind of light, all this navigation that we do would be completely different. Whether it's from the light of our phone telling us on a map where to go, the lights on our headlights that's shining ahead, or the lights that are on the horizons that we're watching. Some of you who are old enough to remember life in cars before anything with a smartphone or any sort of map telling you turn by turn, you might not know exactly where certain things were, and you were using visual cues to help you along the way. If you had a kid that really needed to go to the bathroom, or somebody that was getting sick, or something that needed help, you would notice there are lights over there on the horizon. I need to go in that direction, because if I'm going to find any help at all, it'll be where those lights are, because where those lights are, there are people. That's been a human thing for as long as we could build fires. As long as we could build fires, somebody who was in darkness could see it and could go, there's somebody there. In Jesus' day, if you saw not just one fire, but you saw whole collections of fires, or maybe some lanterns or some sort of light posts that had fires in them, and you saw it from afar, you would know there's people there. There's a city there. There's help there. There's hope there. Specifically, if you were wandering or needed help, needed taken in, You would know if I have any shot at all, I've got to get to where that is because that's where the light is. That's where the light is. Look, guys, we live in a culture, and I've said this already, but we live in a culture that is so disoriented by the darkness that the world offers. People are asking, what's real and what's true and what's worth living for and where can I find hope? And God places people, you and I, all around the world so that others who are asking those questions can look around on the horizon and go, there's a fire burning. I'm going to head that direction. There's a lantern over there. I'm going to go in that direction. In all the darkness, you become the light that they're looking at. People catch a glimpse of another kingdom and a glimpse ultimately of God when they see things like forgiveness practiced in your life, when they see generosity expressed, when they see compassion extended, when they see relationships redeemed, when they see a certain kindness or disposition towards others that is so warming. Most all of us have somebody in our life that we could think of who has been salt and light in the world. And we don't know really how to put it to words, but if we could, we would just say wherever that person is, life was better. Whatever moment they were in, everything was calmer. Whatever situation they encountered, people felt loved. They took time. They were walking alongside. Many of us have someone in our mind that we could point to. And while it's noble to have a picture of that and to say, yeah, that's what I'm looking for, ultimately the goal is not in any of this that a praise would come back to us personally. Verse 16 says, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. The purpose of shining a light is not so that you get attention. The purpose of the shine is not the shine. It's the curiosity. It's the connection. It's the opportunity to bring light into a dark time, into a dark space that people would notice, not be impressed by you, but maybe would ask a question of, why are you like that? How are you like that? Where does that come from? The goal is not your reputation. The goal is that somehow, some way, we can connect them to Jesus. And that's what sets apart, I think, this sermon and really Christianity from any other like self-help, motivation message that the world has ever given. Jesus is not saying, live such a good life that people will give you good credit. He's saying, live a life so that when people see you, they see me. Live a life so that the light that they see in you, they're able to connect and realize that's actually connected to the light that Jesus has given them. We live in a world of darkness. And Jesus is telling us, be visible. Be visible. Don't hide. Be the kind of people whose lives point towards God. Be the kind of church that can't be hidden. Be a city on a hill. Guys, our next steps that we're taking with the center and building the field house, part of the reason I'm so excited about it is because this is another step in a journey that we started several years together as a church, where we said, we believe there are so many more people that are in our community who maybe don't have the words to say it, but are searching for answers. Every day, there is somebody right here in our community who's running low on hope, who's running low on answers, who's running low on purpose, and is trying to figure out, how do I make my way in this world? And so we asked, how do we get in greater contact with more of the people in our community who don't know the Lord, so that we can help them to experience life in the light, because it's a game changer to experience life in Jesus. And so the center became part of this vision to build a bridge into the community by the giving of a gift that they could come and experience, that we could meet personally, that we could interact regularly, and that we could start to tear down some of the walls of unfamiliarity that they might have with a church. And by God's grace, we've seen that over and over and over again. Hundreds, actually over 1,000 more people now call Northview home than did before we made that step. We've not tried to ask that people look at us individually as a leadership or at any of you guys and say that we are perfect people. In fact, far from that. Far from that. All we're trying to be is an authentic representation of salt and light. Salt and light. Very much under construction. Very much still being worked on. But the beauty is that means we're not manufacturing light. It's not fake. It's coming from a sincere and genuine place. When people are being changed by Jesus, there's a light that emanates. You don't have to perform it. You don't have to try to make it happen. It just does. The city on the hill that Jesus describes, the city on a hill that we are trying to be, is not a city of perfect people. It's just people who are letting the light that has been started through Christ shine in the world around them so that others can live in that same light. That's why the question that I want you to ask and maybe wrestle with today is this question. Is there a bowl over my lamp? Is there a bowl over my lamp? That's a very different question than, can I burn brighter for Christ? I think for whatever reason, that's a more natural question that we seem to want to ask. I gotta burn brighter for Jesus. I gotta try harder. I gotta pour gas on this fire. I want to burn brighter so that the world can see. And there's a sense in which I understand that. But do you realize that we could dump truck all the darkness in the world into this space, and one single solitary match would be enough light for everybody in the room to see it? Because as we've already said, light doesn't negotiate with darkness. It just ends it. What if we stopped trying to manufacture more light and we listened to Jesus and just said, I just got to stop hiding the light I have. I got to stop worrying about whether it's a match or an open flame, something that's burning like a wildfire. I just got to concentrate on getting the lid, lifting the lid off of my life of faith, and allowing it to be seen in the form that it is, genuine, authentic, and real. If I've learned anything about this next generation, next couple generations that are coming up behind my generation, Gen X, it's that they are increasingly dissatisfied with fake and performance. What they want is something real. What they're searching for is something authentic. What a greater moment than the one that we have right now to live in, guys, than one that says, stop trying to manufacture something that isn't there. Just take the lid off what is there. Let the world see the light that's burning. And when people observe your life, allow them to see not you, but to see God working in you. Ask yourself, is there a bowl over my light? When people see me, do they see Jesus in me? When they see my life, are things better because I'm there? How do I take what God has done for me and that salt and that light that He's given to me? How do I allow that to be seen more readily in the world around me? Lift the bowl. Lift the bowl. As you think about what this means for you in this moment of response, I want to remind you that just a little goes a long way. A little light and a little salt. We all have experiences. So rather than feel defeated or feel like, man, I don't know how in this dark world I could ever make a difference, realize this instead. God has placed you wherever you are on purpose. Just like you are not an accident, where you are planted right now is not an accident. Whether it's in your families, your neighborhoods, your workplaces, your schools, your teams, your community, you are there because God is scattering His people throughout this world so that their light can shine and be a place of hope. So be salt, be light, and influence this world around you. Help others find their way to God. Give this opportunity in your heart, an opportunity in real life to take effect. Don't let the size of the light, don't let the singularity of a little bit of salt dissuade you from stepping into that which God has called you to. Like you've seen the light, shine the light. Like you have been preserved by the salt, preserve with salt. Take what God is doing in you and allow that world that's around you to see it and allow their lives to be transformed because of it. In time, what happens? As one person after another person after another person after another person starts to share in those experiences, we together start to burn with such an increasing flame that the influence and the opportunity we have to reach even more, maybe even beyond the community, starts to take root, starts to become reality. Guys, that is so part of a reality that's out in front of us as a church, but it all starts right here with each of us. Saying, God, what you have put in me, I will let shine in the world that's around me. So I want to invite you to stand if you would. Get ready to worship if you would. Maybe allow this worship time to be a moment of declaration over your heart of God, this is who I believe you are and what you are calling me to. I want to become everything you've created me to be.